evolution of teaching, adapting to AI-powered classrooms. Of course, thanks to CNE for giving me this platform, giving me this opportunity to share what we've been doing at Silliman University, being the head at a global study center in our university and lead of the AI framework in the university, which I will be sharing in a while. In the next, in the program, I was given 2 hours, but I hope we can discuss more and have more discussions, Q&A of that 2 hour, because I believe on micro learning. I believe that nowadays we don't want to listen for more than 45 minutes, but rather talk and collaborate and learn from each other, journey from each other. But nevertheless, I tried to prepare my material and divided it into six. The first one is I'll talk about the evolution of digital technology so that you can understand. You can understand on the evolution of teaching. Why techno-pedagogical approaches evolve. You know, my undergraduate really is into computer science. My bachelor, my master's is into computer science. My area of specialization is actually in expert systems, which is a branch in artificial intelligence, but I shifted my research career into educational technology. That is why it is easy for me to understand why all these pedagogical approaches happens, because basically there is a so-called evolution of digital technology. I will talk about techno-pedagogical transformation, which is deeply rooted from the existing digital technologies. And there, I'll talk about AI and some examples of AI-powered classrooms. What are the available technologies? What are scalable, appropriate, relevant, affordable technologies or examples of AI-powered classrooms? And then examples, benefits, and risks, and learning the ethics of AI. And I'll share also what I have learned so far in our journey at Silliman University when we crafted our AI framework, our policy, and our implementing guidelines. If you have suggestions on my outline, feel free to message. I can read actually your messages. So feel free to message me if you want something. If you if you have in mind, even at this moment, feel free to ask questions. All your doubts about AI, feel free to put it there so that I can embed that into my discussion. Okay, so how digital technologies evolve? Um, Sige. I don't want to I don't want to predict your ages. I don't want to spot your ages, but um you can actually go through as to the evolution. When was the first educational technology that you've been using? Who among you here, who among you here were able to see or touch a word star? Word star. Word star is like Microsoft Word. Mm, pag no one have no experience. If you have no experience in WordStar, I should say that you are perhaps a little younger. Kasi during our time, we don't have Microsoft Word. It's all about WordStar. We don't have spreadsheet during we don't have Microsoft Excel during that time. We have spreadsheet. We use we use three and a half. No, we use 5.5. I started with 5.5 floppy disk. It flops. It's called floppy disk. I think many of you, yes, Lotus was the spreadsheet back then. Hi, Ma'am Florine. I think we're on the same age. Relate, huh? So all of those, and then when we had all those technologies, and then the Microsoft came in, even our Windows 95. We started with Windows 95 and then 98, 2000, and so on and so forth, right? Sige. Now, all of this is actually deeply rooted also with hardware. There are computers, and our computer before, I keep on joking to my student that good for you, you have super fast computer right now. Us before, if you have gigabytes of computer right now, before we're just simply talking about kilobytes, and we were afraid that time that we can develop programs that is too long, otherwise our hardware cannot anymore accommodate all those instructions that we give to the computer. How many of you here na typewriter na abutan pa namin? Yes, no? Even the typewriter. Until now naman meron pa ring mga typewriter dahil hindi nag-evolve yung mga offices. At alam nyo na kung sino mga offices na yan. Hindi nag-evolve into the more innovative way of doing it. The evolution of digital technologies, it's all started with the first stage of transformation. This is the one that we call digitization. This is the process of translating our analog information and data into the digital form. Why it is called analog? If it is not analog, what do you call? It is actually called digital. So analog information, because all this information pass through sound waves. Kaya before, if may bagyo, hindi gagana yung mga ATM machines natin, wala yung signal in our mobile phone before we have to look for a higher space up in the mountain because majority or many of our many of our technologies are into the analog. And then from there, from that analog, it's now to digitalization. What's that digitalization means or all about? The use of digital technologies to change business process and project. Wha How it differs from digitization is just basically, for example, if we will just say we buy a computer because we wanted to scan our picture. We buy a computer because we wanted to scan our books and put it there instead of printing. We buy our computer because we just simply wanted to save all our documents. That's digitization. While digitalization, this attacks on the process. You are changing the process. So for example, instead of letting the students borrow a book, digitalization is you develop a system for them to access the book. Okay? Instead of just simply using Microsoft Excel for the payroll, add, edit, delete, and whatsoever, you change the process in the computation of the payroll through the development of a system which basically designed to improve the service or to make the service more faster. Okay? So I hope you can see the difference of digitization and digitalization. Digitalization also encompasses the broader use and integration of digital technology across various aspects. Businesses, we see that in the government and even to us. Why? Because it designed to adapt the application of digital technologies with the main purpose of enhancing the processes instead of just simply storing the data so that it can improve efficiency and at the same time it can give new value to the services that we give to our clientele. Digitalization also, it involves of leveraging digital tools, platforms. So hindi pwedeng mag-digitalization kami sir, pero computer lang yung binili. Kasi if just simply a computer and there is no corresponding system process, it's not digitalization. You are just simply doing digitization. My point is, when we digitalize our process, kasamang investment on the software. Hindi pwedeng hardware investment lang. Dahil nga, the hardware cannot do processes, cannot perform, cannot transform our processes to interact to our customer, to perform the task. May kasamang software. So, digitalization. Yung pangatlo is what we call digital transformation. Ano naman ito? It includes both digitization, digitalization effort. It goes together beyond the project level, which affects the entire organization and all stakeholders in the organization. So bakit kasama si digitization? Kasi nowadays, there is a so-called data analytics. If you store data, you have to transform this data. Kaya, digitization is there. We have a lot of systems nowadays. Before, it's just simply class record. Now, we have LMSs. We have LMS. That's digital transformation. What else? Digital transformation Digital transformation is basically integration of all digital technologies, such as technology in particular, the hardware, the communication, the internet, whether that is through Wi-Fi and so on. You should have your data. You should have the so-called Internet of Things. Internet of Things, the IoT, which means everything should be connected to each other. And then there is the system of automation. And we often hear this, the AI and the networking. When all of this integrated into the business, the main idea of digital transformation is fundamentally changing how the business operates and delivers value. And it involves reimagining business process. Business process, strategies, the models to leverage digital technologies, and even capitalize on the benefits. So digital transformation, unlike with digitalization, goes beyond digitizing existing processes. It involves holistic approach to embrace digital technologies, data-driven decision-making, customer centricity, and even cultural shift of the operation. Hindi na pwede yung, dati kasi okay lang naman kasi we were able to operate for that last 20 years. That's cultural shift. We need to change that culture that it's okay to be okay. That should not be the case in the technology. It's okay, but we need to do more. Bakit? Dahil we need to drive innovation and achieve the objective of our businesses. And that concern is basically to deliver and add more value to our customer. And all of this transformation that I'd mentioned is deeply rooted on the so-called the fourth industrial revolution technologies. And the rapid pace of technological advancement in the digital age has revolutionized various aspects of our lives, right? All of these examples illustrate the diverse range of technological advancement shaping our education in the digital age, shaping who we are right now as human beings. And when we leverage with these innovations, as educators, teachers can also enhance teaching methodology. We can engage more students and prepare them for the challenges of the future. That's okay, Ma'am Fe. Even if digitization pa lang kita, maybe there is the mindset of digital transformation, and that's very important. Later on, I will show to you that it's not just simply transformation. It's not just simply a so-called conversion, which is the data. It's not just simply adaptation to the process. It's not just simply creation of a new business. Why? Because of the fourth industrial revolution, meron na tayong tinatawag na disruptive innovation. So it's not just simply about adding value to our business. It's not just simply about adding value to the services we offer, but it's actually changing the process that disrupts the operation in order to provide more meaning to our customers, to our clients, to our students. Disruptive innovation refers to transformative changes, and it introduces new and oftentimes more efficient alternative that challenge every norm and culture in our career or in our lives that sometimes can lead to the displacement of many or significant transformation. Digital innovation, digital transformation, digitization, and digitalization are basically related concepts. These are related concepts, but I'll tell you, they have distinct meaning. Now, let me further deepen what's a disruptive innovation so that I can bring our discussion to education. So what is disruptive innovation as part of the evolution of digital technology? Disruption means it is a break or interruption in the normal course of continuation of some activities, processes, etc. Because of the heat index, our classes are disrupted, right? And then when we say innovation, it refers to a new idea, a new method, or a new device. And that, when we say disruptive innovation, let's combine together, refers to a transformative concept or breakthrough, no, that disrupts existing markets, stops, or industries because they wanted to introduce new products, new services, new processes that offer superior value and convenience or affordability to the customers. Disruptive innovations often start as a niche or lower end alternatives and gradually gain traction and eventually displacing established market players or fundamentally changing the way business is connected. The idea of disruptive innovations always challenge the status quo, the normal operation, and traditional business model for offering a compelling value proposition to the customer. And over time, disruptive innovations improve and gain broader market acceptance and ultimately disrupting and reshaping the industry. It is also important to note that disruptive innovations do not necessarily or do not always directly compete with existing products or services on the same terms. It actually redefine the rules. What I mean to that is it appeal to different customer segments and create new market opportunities. And there's a lot of successful stories when it comes to disruptive technology or disruptive innovation. Some of these examples, let me highlight how disruptive innovations have fundamentally changed industries and challenging established players and providing consumers with new, more convenient and efficient options. Uber, Grab, these are transportation businesses, but they don't have actual cars, right? Airbnb, hotel, a hotel business, but they don't have actual hotel. You just imagine that. All of these, they disrupt the normal operations. And this technological advancement does not always impact other aspects of business, but it highlights education, virtual and augmented reality, online learning platform, blockchain technology, robotics. AI is everywhere. Who would have thought yung smartwatch natin, it can calculate how much calorie are burned, how much walks you need for you to stay sexy, how much what's your heartbeat and everything, your blood pressure. These are all IoTs. These are all applications of artificial intelligence that are always directed to teaching and learning. So, sir, what's the question? Or, I mean, what about disruptive innovations in education? How can you relate disruptive innovations in education? How this evolution of hardware and digital technologies affects education? Let's define first. Disruptive innovation in education refers to transformative changes. Take note, transformative. Hindi siya pwedeng digitization or digitalized process in the education. What I mean to that? It's not disruptive education or disruptive innovation in education if you will just simply say that you just have a grading system, that you have a learning management system. It's not that way. A learning management system is a digital transformation. It's not yet disruptive. Okay? I'll explain why later. In the field of education, that challenge and reshape traditional educational models, practices, and systems. Kaya nga during the COVID, maraming reklamo ng reklamo kasi you don't change your process. Parang may computer ka, ino-automate mo lang ano yung norm and ano yung culture mo, which is irrelevant. Hindi magmamatch yung old process mo with the current educational technologies we have. Okay? It involves the introduction of new approaches, new technologies, new business models that offer improved learning experiences, accessibility, and outcome. Take note of what I mentioned here. Improve learning experiences. improve accessibility, improve outcome. Walang sinabi dito to improve teachers' convenience and teachers' comfortability para lahat ito sa estudyante. So that you will have an idea how the mapping works when it comes to digital innovations, I have this. If we have digitization, example to this, encoding your grade in Excel, encoding your exam, writing your exam on a piece of paper or in Microsoft Word, that's still digitization. If you use PowerPoint and with animations, that is now adoption because it's already processed. And having an LMS with your synchronous technology tool, if you have your Zoom, Google Meet, Blackboard, or whatsoever, and asynchronous, that is still digital transformation. Take note that disruptive innovation focuses on transformative changes. Hindi lang hanggang transformative. Si LMS na transform niya yung teaching and learning natin but it does not disrupt. Bakit? Ano yung mga specific innovations in the disruptions in teaching and learning? Examples dito yung personalized learning, learning path creations, automated feedbacking, progression, chatbot. These are adaptive technology. Nag-a-adapt na. And when you adapt, may sariling pag-iisip when to adapt and not to adapt. Dahil it focus on certain group of learners and group of environment for them to improve access, to improve learning, and to improve outcomes. So, disruptive innovations in education, I highlighted three: access, engagement, and personalized learning. All of these can or have a common denominator, which is being adaptive. And if it is being adaptive, these are considered as disruptive educational technologies. These disruptive educational technologies that affects tech, that affects pedagogy, that affects strategy, and that affects resources in the classroom. With this, let me walk through you on the techno-pedagogical transformation that we are doing. After knowing all the evolution of the hardware, how all this hardware affects evolutions or our pedagogical transformation. Long time ago, it's really long time ago, or we shall say in the not so distant past, e-learning phase has limited acceptance. I could still remember there's a notable gap existed before. I started doing all e-learning advocacy, teaching the less privileged people to access to technology. Maybe since 2008, doing all educational technology research, and madaming resistance. Statement like, ay, matanda na kami, sir. Para lang yan sa mga bata. No? Ay, nakapag-produce naman ako ng mga lawyers. Nakapag-produce naman ako ng doctors na walang technology. Okay naman yung teaching ko. No? And my common responses to that, well, that was 20 years ago. Did you ask your student now if you are still relevant to them? If your teaching method is still exciting to them? And that was long time ago. Long time ago, there's already e-learning. Hindi lang talaga napipick up dahil there's so many variables that affects implementation. In my study way back 2012 around the Philippines, I tried to look at how educational technology is being prioritized And when they prioritize, how many of these priorities are actually implemented? And you can really see the difference. You can really see the gap. It's just simply on a piece of paper. It's in their plan that they wanted to use this and so on and so forth, but they don't actually implement. Bakit? There's a lot of barriers. I followed through another study way back 2015. 3 years later, we conducted a study on what are the barriers in the conduct of online learning in the Philippines. And we found out a strong barrier. Remember, this is 2015. Cost and access to the internet, a strong barrier. Technical problems, a strong barrier. And barriers are technical skills, even administrative issues. They don't get support from administrators. The learner motivation itself, academic skills, time and support to studies, and even social interaction are somewhat of a barrier. That's until 2015. I have more studies along the way, 2016, 2017, because I tried to map out. I also roam around Region 7 to help and advocate acquisition of educational technologies in teaching and learning through several funds because I found it in 2016, 2017, 2018, nag-ikot kami sa Visayas to teach the teachers to make sure that they are familiar and acquire basic competency in the educational technologies. Yun, e-learning yun. There was already e-learning before, I'll tell you. It's just that hindi napipick up before. When COVID came, alam nyo na, what's next? When COVID came, and then we were forced from face-to-face to COVIDize and then to flexible learning, ang dami nating training. And I think CNE provided a lot of webinars, free seminars, professional development during COVID. During this time, we were forced, no? We were forced. During that time also, ino-operationalize natin ang tinatawag na flexible learning. At hindi natin alam anong klaseng pedagogy yun. Turo lang ng turo, gawa ng gawa. Pero ano ba talaga yung theoretical underpinnings why we should have those kind of teaching pedagogy according to that specific time. So what is cybergogy? Basically, cybergogy, it comes from this is actually to learn by facilitating and technologically enabling learner-centered, autonomous, and collaborative learning in a virtual environment. Kaya nga, you attended a training about how to gamify content. Your Kahoot, you were trained with Kahoot, you were trained with Word Quiz, Professor Quiz, you were trained with a lot of games, H5P, and so on and so forth. Autonomy, virtual environment. Meron din tinatawag na micro-learning. Micro-learning, chopping big content into smaller chunks because our students nowadays get bored after 7 minutes. Kaya nga, yung mga video natin, when you make, how long your videos? Pag gumawa ka ng video, more than 7 minutes, expect, isuscroll na yan forward to the student. Kasi research shows, boredom of the students in a digital content strikes down at 3 minutes. It goes up 1, 2, 3, and then 4 minutes, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes, it ended. That is where your student will start scrolling forward to your video. Kaya don't make your materials too long and that your students will not view into it. Kaya wag yung pagalitan si estudyante. Ang nangyayari, gawa ng mga material, hindi pala appropriate, hindi pala yun ang gusto ng ating learner. Meron din tayong tinatawag na flip learning under cybergogy. Flip learning, tagal na rin ito. When you come into the synchronous time or discuss na, no? Kaya nga walang internet, sayang yung internet data ng mga estudyante, nakikinig lang sila sa'yo, no? Why not use that in a more engaging activity, performance task, problem-based, and so on. And then, meron tayong tinatawag na personalized learning. So, personalized learning, providing learning journeys to our learners, providing unique activities and unique exercise in every learner in accordance to the type of their multiple intelligence or in accordance to their progression or achievement inside the classroom. So these are all cybergogy, a guiding framework that encompasses basically three interconnected domains: the cognitive, emotive, and actually also social, which specifically tailored for online settings. And this model facilitates more generative and constructive learning activities, but it became crucial tool during the shift from traditional learning to the dynamic landscape of digital learning, especially during COVID, helping to bridge the gap of the problem before of acceptance and low acceptance among teachers. From there, from long time ago, when COVID came, then we have the so-called COVIDize. I call it COVIDize. Ito yung time na we were forced again from flexible learning to limited face-to-face. Hindi pa nga natin natapos yung business continuity plan during flexible learning. Ando na naman, lumalabas yung tinatawag na limited face-to-face. During this time, we conducted several training again. Nag-i-introduce naman supposedly ng mga technologies, ng mga processes, but what's really the theoretical underpinning in relation to educational principle? There are two. The first one is pedagogy. What's pedagogy? Pedagogy is a theory of peer-to-peer learning and teaching that addresses the challenge of peer producing a useful and supportive context for self-directed learning. First, self-directed learning. It directly tackled the challenge again, and this proved instrumental in adapting to the evolving educational landscape where peer engagement became a cornerstone for effective and resilient learning structure. Napansin niyo before, uh, when students, they work alone, mataas yung mga failures natin kasi they just work alone. So they need peers, they need co-workers, they need teammates for them to uh, improve and enhance and support the context of their self-directed learning. It's not just simply about me, myself, and I. It's about helping each other. So dito lumalabas yung mga technology like forums, wikis, real-time meetings, open educational resources, and etc. No? And during this time also, we introduce the so-called Yotagogy. Ano naman itong Yotagogy? Is the study of self-directed learning. Dinagdagan kasi si pedagogy that supports self-directed learning. Dinagdagan Yotagogy that support self-determined learning. Kaya dito na-introduce or si Yotagogy is all about teaching learners how to learn. It's not anymore teaching students the content, but teaching our learners how to learn. where to find all those resources, what are the available links, available tools for them to enhance their learning, and so on. And pedagogy, basically extension of andragogy, shifting the focus from content being taught to the learning or to the learning process itself. And it places a greater emphasis, again, it places greater emphasis on empowering learners to take an active role in the education. Kaya, during this time, na-introduce yung flexible curriculum. Yung milk natin, the most essential learning competency, nagiging flexible. Merong tinatawag na negotiated assessment, yung mga learning journals, nagsilabasan yung mga funding on action research, no? Collaborative learning, project-based learning, etc. and etc. These are actually within the design elements of the so-called utagogy or the utagogical approach in the integration of educational technology. Then what's next after COVID dies? We have, I call it post-pandemic, no? And my definition of post-pandemic is wala na si COVID, pero pumapasok na naman si heat index. So nagsilabasan na rin yung no, all face-to-face classes are now converted to converted to online class, synchronous, and so on and so forth. You just imagine that even after COVID, andun pa rin yung walang pasok, automatic nag-shift na tayo kasi sobrang init. What's next? Kaya whatever skills that we accumulated during the COVID, let's proceed with it. Let's continue with it. Embrace more dahil gamit na gamit pa rin sila in the post-pandemic time. So in the post-pandemic time, meron tayong tinatawag na from limited to the preferred future. So preferred future kasi it depends to us on how we reclassify the teaching methodology that we have. I understand that the audience now are higher education. Have you noticed? Atras abante din si Commission on Higher Education. At first, well, the institution can opt, there's no turning back. And then later on, sabi ni Commission, all of you should go back to the face-to-face and so on and so forth. So, wala tayong nagawa. Bumalik tayo, pero si Siliman, hindi nawala yung technology namin. So, ang tawag namin, because we can still go on online, ang tawag namin is pedagogical. Ang tawag namin is uh, technology-assisted on-site learning. Oh, so technology-assisted on-site learning, memorandum yan, academic, Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs. So, yung mga techie na teacher, pwede pa rin maka-go on with synchronous, asynchronous. It's just that they have a portion of that they have to go on campus kasi technologically enhanced. Technology-assisted on-site learning. Okay? So dito, naglipa na yung mga dalawang major terms, si hybrid and si HyFlex. So when we say hybrid, alam na natin yan. When we say HyFlex, alam na din natin yan. Although, they said it needs much investment to the HyFlex pedagogy. And all of these are basically, especially itong si hybrid and si HyFlex, is also characterized by the so-called fourth industrial revolution technologies. Among these include AI, IoT, wearable, robotic, analytics, and so on and so forth. And when we say fourth industrial revolution, it's characterized by the fusion of technologies and the blurring of the lines between physical, digital, and biological aspects. Yun nga sabi ko, who would have thought na itong mga smartwatches natin, it can It can check how much, ito na sabi na, you get up. Kasi ilang minutes na ako nakaupo. So who would have thought that this physical thing, it is now digital and it can connect to my biological attributes. It's called Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies. Questions so far? If you have questions, if you have clarifications, feel free to chat on the chat box so that I can read them one at a time or inject that into my discussion. Are we still good? Anything that you would like to share? The evolution of digital technology, the hardware per se, and the evolution of the techno-pedagogical transformation. I saw some heart. Thanks to that. Anyone who would like to add? O sino yung nakaabot ng word star? At sino yung nakaabot ng 5.5? 5.5 floppy disk. Kaway-kaway. Nakaabot ng 5.5 5.5 floppy disk. Can you imagine that? A 5.5 floppy disk. For sure, itong si Marian, hindi na ito nakaabot. Tama, Marian, no? Miss May. Floppy disk. Si Sir Noel Aguilar. Yes, mga ano to, sir? Floppy disk. 1990s, no? I graduated my 1995. Yes, I graduated my bachelor 1995. Ayan. So, floppy disk. My first year was 5.5, no? When I started working, wala na si 5.5, nagiging 3.5 na siya. Mm-mm. So, ayan. Hindi na lang tayo magpahalata na naabutan natin ito. At naabutan natin si cassette tapes and so on and so forth. No? But what's good thing to us, we are more resilient. I'll tell you, tayong mga educational technologies na may experience, o sasabihin na natin may experience, we are more resilient compared to the young generation. Kasi yun nga sabi ko sa inyo, you just imagine we have to take care of that floppy disk. Hindi pwedeng maarawan, hindi pwedeng madaganan ng mabigat na bagay kasi it was so sensitive. You just imagine that. Ngayon, pag ang data nasa flash drive, mga flash drive, flash disk, if you cannot retrieve your file, my God, parang guguho yung mundo kasi all your data are there and everything and so on and so forth. No? So, those are the evolution. Connected talaga siya. Yung hardware natin, yung hardware natin is actually connected to the pedagogy that we have right now. Bakit nag-evolve si pedagogy? Dahil nag-evolve din si digital technologies. Hindi pwedeng hanggang LMS lang tayo. I'll tell you. Boring. Sasabihin ng estudyante, boring. Wala namang AI sa LMS ba? Wala bang mga adaptive learning platform sa LMS natin? Pag sinabi nating proud na tayo na may e-book tayo, nag-subscribe tayo ng libro from CNE, hanggang subscription lang ba? Wala bang hindi pa tayo nag-subscribe ng mga AI doon? Just to look at the analytics? Yan. No? So, kailangang mag-evolve. Bakit mag-evolve si library? Dahil yung estudyante natin, wala. Hati. Some of them still wanted to go to print, but majority most probably would want a combination, a soft, I mean a soft copy and at the same time a printed copy for some times for another situations or other cases. So we need to adjust it. I mean, we need to transform also. Hindi pwedeng yung syllabus natin na 20 years ago, the same teaching strategy ngayon. Though the content may not change, sige, I will ano yan, na hindi naman si change yung content, sir. Okay, sige, pabayaan kita. Pero wag naman sigurong the same teaching strategy lang yung 20 years ago mo. 'Di ba? Ah, May, our MC, mentioned that it's actually I'm celebrating my 20 years. Yes, 20 years at Silliman, but my total actually is 24. I have other experience. So next year I'll be 25 in the teaching profession. It's a teaching advocacy and calling. And hindi pwedeng kahit IT graduate ako, hindi pwedeng yung the same material ko 20 yung first year of my teaching career would be the same teaching strategy. I'll tell you, when I started teaching Windows 1995, hindi pwedeng process ng 1995 would have similar with Windows 2016 and or 2013 or whatsoever. Dahil nag-evolve. So, hindi pwedeng e-learning lang, hindi pwedeng cybergogy lang, hindi pwedeng pedagogy lang, utagogy lang. Let's go for hybrid. Let's imagine hybrid. Let's imagine HyFlex. All of this with fourth industrial revolution. Disruptions. We need to disrupt to be relevant to our learners, to be more engaging to our learners. Since I am talking artificial intelligence, oh, hi Ma'am Veronica, kaway-kaway sa nakaabot ng floppy disk, no? Wala naman sigurong nakaabot dito ng 11.5, no? Grabe, pag may nakaabot pa ng 11.5, parang X-ray na siya. 11.5, wala naman, you know? Sige, wala. Let me proceed to the third topic, which is more into the AI. Because we said the fourth industrial revolution technologies is basically defined as an AI revolution, the fourth industrial revolution. So, this is the conceptual framework of how AI works. There are several branches of artificial intelligence. Kami in the computer science, we learn human brain. No, we have subject that talks about neurons, how the human brain thinks. We have that. We have to learn that so that we can teach. Also, we can program the computer learn. Kaya tinatawag namin ng machine learning. We look at several pag education ka, alam mo itong ano yung deep learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning. Meron din sa computer science niyan. Pag dito ka naman sa English, bakit naintindihan ni computer yung mga sinasabi natin, instruction, there's a field in artificial intelligence called natural language processing. Bakit may data analytics? Bakit alam ng AI ano yung mga sinasabi mo? Bakit nakapag-translate siya? Kasi merong classification, machine translation, question answering, text generation, and so on. There is also a separate field, expert systems. So that's basically my field in my master's. So it's an expert system because expert meaning there is scarcity of human expertise. That is why we are going to translate that into a computer base. That's why it's called expert system. Then we also have vision, yung mga uh, image recognition, machine vision, and so on. Yung mga camera, sensors, and everything that's under vision branch of AI. Then we also have so-called, aside from NLP, we have speech. So may mga ano na ngayon, di ba? May mga driverless car that voice activated car. You don't need to drive. You just say go to the left, go to the right and jump. No? So text to speech, we also have that. Sometimes it's um we're getting tired of typing. Why not just simply utter the words, and then there are apps that can translate all those speech to your text or the other way around. Um, and many more. There is also planning, and then robotics is the most popular, I think, for artificial intelligence, perhaps for the non-computer science or non-IT people. And the most popular that I wanted to highlight, baka tatanungin nyo, saan dito si mga generative AI? Saan dito si ChatGPT? Anong klaseng AI siya? Si ChatGPT, under siya specifically deep learning category of machine learning branch in AI. So deep learning. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning. So andun si generative AI. So generative AI like ChatGPT, Bard, and others that works on text. Okay? So that's how that's the landscape of artificial intelligence. Tanong, sir, lahat ba ito may equivalent educational technologies? Yes, the answer is yes. Lahat ito merong corresponding AI-powered technologies. Machine learning, o di meron kang ChatGPT, no? Natural language processing, text generation, question and answer. Oh, we have rubrics maker, we have many more. It can translate vocabulary and so on. Vision, lalo na, no? For example, to this, we have smart classrooms. Put up ka lang ng mga videos inside your classroom, and the video will determine, oh, this teacher is engaging. This class is totally engaging. I have a master student doing a research trying to understand the smart classroom, and so on. Much more with the speech and much more with the robotics. So that you can understand, I'll give you some examples of AI-powered classrooms. With all of this, let me translate this AI, branches of AI, into the four walls of the classroom. So what are some examples of AI-powered classroom? Number one, meron tayong tinatawag na AI-powered interactive board. Give me a thumbs up. Siguro naman, you were able to see a smart board. Yung board that you can touch, my gesture recognition, you can write, that's very good. AI-driven content, it can recommend to facilitate collaborative learning activities and dynamic presentations. How many of you here merong smart boards or interactive whiteboards in your school? Paki-chat ng school na merong interactive whiteboard. Alam, wala pa. Wala pang mga interactive whiteboard. Interactive playboard. Yes, that's fine, no? Homeschool. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, some example to this is at the CNE is can assist you class in learning build a hybrid learning environment that shines a light on in class engagement and pedagogical considerations. It integrates online and offline spaces to provide authentic learning support and class in X and class in smart board. Try to check it out. These are some of the boards that they can offer. All this basically equipped with AI features with the main intention is two major intention, classroom interactivity and student engagement. Hindi siya pagandahan ng room. Baka ma-misinterpret. Kaya ako, I can understand if an administrator, sir, gawa tayo ng bili tayo ng interactive whiteboard. O tapos, anong gagawin? Any plan? Can you show to me your syllabus? Can you show to me your curriculum na merong integration talaga? Ganon. Wala naman. Ano lang pala, pagandahan lang pala itong interactive whiteboard. No? Ang gagawin nyo, make it classroom oriented. O di, Sabihin mo muna lahat ng, kasi sir, lahat ng curriculum, lahat ng syllabus natin in the teaching learning resources ng syllabay or ng, syllabay kasi higher ed pala ito. Sir, meron nang naka-incorporate kasi na AI-driven board. So, kailangan natin, sir, kasi ito talagang gusto. Ganun. Hindi yung, sir, bili tayo ng interactive whiteboard. O tapos, bakit? Kasi sir, yung ibang school, meron na sila eh. Ang gaganda. Tapos pag nag-ano tayo, nag-beauty pageant tayo, meron ng ganito, ganyan. Ay, wala eh, di ba? So, dapat may main intention ka. Kasi sir, we want to improve interactivity among our students. We wanted them to engage, to be engaged in our discussion. That's the first one. The other one is the so-called um, the AI-powered adaptive learning hardware. Ito naman hardware. Uh, there are many, no? But incorporates mga sensors and AI algorithms to monitor students' attention and cognitive engagement in real time. And these technologies provide insight to teachers on student cognitive states and learning readiness, facilitating personalized instruction and support. So, as I mentioned, I have a student here in their elementary school. She's a primary school teacher somewhere in China. And all their classrooms, they have smart technologies. They put at their hardware, mga video camera, and they have a monitor. The principal can just stay parang yung principal room has access to the control room. So at one time, at one glance, makikita niya who among the classes, current classes, engaging yung discussion. At makikita niya sino yung mga classrooms na hindi engaging based on AI. No, kaya mga teachers doon talagang gagawa daw talaga ng paraan. Kasi otherwise, parang magpo-push button si principal. That means hindi engaging yung classroom. Gusto natin 'yan? No? So, where is now our public school when it comes to digital transformation? Yeah, no? So baka kailangan lang ng push into the budget or project proposal have more meaning into the budget proposal, hindi lang infra yung mindset, but really strategy is really improvement of the learning process that you need hardware to support your objective. Okay? Another example is AI-powered educational robots. So these integrate capabilities to support hands-on learning and programming. And these robots use sensors, use cameras, and AI algorithms to interact with students, teach coding concepts, and facilitate STEM education. Not necessarily programming, it could be another courses, no, that you can incorporate a lot of robotics kits that are available in the market. Like for CNE, they have all of these: TTS, Arctic Robo, Lux Robo, Arduino, the Pitsco Education, and Meritus AI. All of these can help us when it comes to uh, uh, improving analytical thinking of our students through robotics that integrates AI. Basically, the intention is to have more engaging exercises, more problem-based exercises in the teaching and learning. Okay, another one is the AI-powered virtual reality headsets. I think we're familiar into this. Have you tried putting your VR and as if like, for example, oh, that's very good, Ma'am Gladys, University of San. Oh, hi to some friends in San Agustin. I remember, I think I was invited there for twice, I think, talks about pedagogy, etc. That's good that you have an AI lab. I hope it's programmatic in nature, not just simply the hardware that we can see, but more into the teaching and learning process. So VR reality, how many of you have tried putting your goggles, like doing in a desert or swimming under a large ocean, getting inside a stomach of a whale and imagining that you are in and out and so on and so forth. Okay? I will park the question of Mamfe. At what age we can safely introduce the use of AI when I read the discussion on ethical use of artificial intelligence? No, VR, augmented reality, they use AI algorithm for object recognition, spatial mapping, adaptive content delivery, enables students to explore virtual environments and simulation for learning purposes. Okay. And then we also have the smart cameras and microphone. So my phone, I mean my headset doesn't have a full AI. Yung mga full AI na headset, aside from the noise cancellation feature, they can make your voice very modulated and very well and etc. and etc. Something like that. It can help us have more engaging, no? There are cameras already, high flex technologies, like in our laboratory, we have high flex technology. There are AI that can move around. Uh, you can teach the camera, you can instruct the camera to just focus when someone is talking loudly, and so on and so forth. Facial recognition, voice recognition, automated tracking, etc. And all these devices can enhance remote and hybrid learning experiences by improving audio-visual quality and facilitating active participation. We also have assistive technologies. Sir Noel also mentioned Labster, virtual reality simulation. We also have assistive technologies. I remember way back 2010, I guess. I'm actually a trained I had a short I have a short course. I completed a short course on teaching visually impaired, no? How to teach visually impaired people using digital technology. I can teach actually. I can teach the visually impaired people. I can teach them how to program, how to code, and etc. because there are many assistive technologies already. So these technologies use eye tracking, speech recognition, predictive text to enable inclusive learning experiences for all students. That's AI-powered assistive technologies and many more. There's a lot. We cannot finish discussing examples of AI-powered classrooms because there's a lot. So some examples of how this AI is transforming education. More examples. AI generated educational content. I think there's no problem with this. I mean, we know all of this: OpenAI, the ChatGPT, Bard, and so on and so forth. Adaptive learning platform. This platform use AI again to analyze student performance, identify areas of weakness, generate personalized recommendations and content to help students improve their understanding and skills. No, you can course through also your discussions with the CNE. They offer Carolina and they offer LJ Create as part of their adaptive learning platform. All of this basically to improve engagement, to improve interactivity in the classroom, because research shows that engagement is directly correlated with performance, no? So kung engaged si estudyante, there is really possibility that there are high performance level among our learners. You can use language learning. Duolingo is also popular. You can adapt. This can adapt to each learner's proficiency level and adjust the difficulty of exercises accordingly, making language learning more engaging and effective. Virtual tutors and mentors. It provides personalized guidance and support to students. I think this morning before I hear about Amira Learning also, which you can also access. You can ask a CNE rep here. This is a very good reading assessment that I also look at, which allows students to choose from several appropriately difficult and engaging text to read. This tool uses natural language processing and generative AI techniques to understand students' questions and provide explanations, helping them grasp difficult concepts and work through problems. We can have also virtual tutors and mentors, no? AI powered virtual tutor. They uses also natural language processing. And then content generation, as I'd mentioned, I can teach visually impaired. There is JAWS, no? Job Access with Speech is the most popular screen reader, and many more. Our simulations and virtual lab, I think Sir Noel mentioned about Labster. Students can conduct virtual experiments, manipulate variables, observe outcomes, providing a safe and immersive learning experience. So can also contact CNE. They also offer Proxy Labs. It's a 3D virtual laboratory simulation learning platform providing educational institutions with cost-effective, innovative, and immersive simulations, biology, chemistry, and physics. And um, these tools, basically, there's an AI employed to create realistic simulations, no? Again, realistic simulations as if even if they are using the technology, they can still experience the same as to the on-campus or on-classroom. We also have automated grading and feedback, like generative AI can transform. This platform utilize AI to evaluate written responses, feedback mechanism, and can identify potential plagiarisms and saving educators time and providing prompt feedback to students. At CNE, you can course through. They have their complete hardware kit, and at the same time their STEM courses. They have instructional materials available for life science, physical science, chemistry, and environmental science that is also integrated within the said platform. And then we also have adaptive system. These systems provide a more accurate evaluation of students' knowledge and skills, enabling a personalized feedback and targeted interventions. And there's more examples like in the art and design, in music creation, storytelling and writing, local knowledge preservation, language tricks, even chatbots and some assistants. What are the different tools for education aside from what CNE is offering to us? There are also tools that can advance and we can further expect transformative applications like this generative AI from text to image, video, research, design, presentation, spreadsheets, productivity, and these are some of the free AI that you can use, no? Content creation, image creation, video creation, caption creation, and many more. If you're a researcher also, you have this list, beautiful AI, Canva, Infogram, WordArt.com, Deep AI, text summarization that can summarize your text, Author AI, Trello, Mind Map for your conceptual framework, and Tala for your presentation. If you're a researcher, I'm a researcher. I use a lot of AI responsibly and ethically, just like this. Is Tudor AI. Tudor can help you make your research problem, can help you write how to write correctly your research problem. All you have to do is to follow, give some instruction of Tudor, like on the video that I shared to you. Hi, I'm Tudor, and then can you tell me your name? I type actually Dave Marshall. So Tudor knows me. Hi, Marshall. I'm not sure what you mean, which is an essay, blah, blah, blah. So at the end of this, actually, it can help you write appropriately how to write your research objective or how to write your performance task and etc. Another one, if you're a teacher, like if you are assigned with a new maybe subject and you have a hard time looking at your syllabus and you are tasked to make your syllabus and you don't have reference, you can actually go to this. It's not perfect, but you can use this because it's complete. All you have to do is to type your course, what the course title, and then in just one click, or as if you have you can download. There are exercises actually. It's a full content. There is overview. There is also introduction. You can find the solutions. There are challenges. There are practices with key answers. No, there is the material there. And then if you wanted your students to learn like a formative assessment, there are quizzes and there are explanations, key answers or answer keys, etc. It's all there. Just go to that site. It's coursai.co. Okay. Another tool that may be helpful to you if you are a researcher, jsstore.org. If you're looking for your related literature, all you have, sorry, all you have to do is you can actually you can actually just drop and drag a document, an image, and then JS Store will find related literature for you. So Analysia, it's an analytics, it's a literature analytics. JS Store will just analyze and provide you downloadable literature. Na sometimes when we research over Google, the difficulty to us is we have difficulty in finding a right keyword. Ito, you don't need to think of the keyword, but just put all the words that you can do. And what is good also is you can adjust the words that you wanted to prioritize in your search. So that's jsstore.org. Anyone who have tried this before? Who have tried this before? The JS Store. You can take a screenshot to that. It's free basically, no? So walang problem. Next, you can also try this one, Connected Papers. It's a very powerful tool. I also use this. I just type, say for example, digital trust, and then I'm looking for Marshall, and then there's the paper there, and then you can see how the paper is connected with the other paper. Like what you can see in your screen is those are the literature that I cited, and the literature that I cited also connects to each other, and so on and so forth. Okay, so just like that, another example that I can share this, if you have difficulty, most probably, and you don't have so much time to read like thousands of books or hundreds of pages of books or a literature, there is a so-called summate.it. This tool can summarize your journal article into some reading times. For example, this one, this is the full paper. All you have to do is to select the link of the full paper, and then you can paste. I think this paper of mine is about 30 pages. You can just paste it there, and then you can summarize. Okay? And then you can expand. Like, I wanted a 4-minute read. So, gagawa siya ng another summary that is enough for a 4 minutes reading. Okay, and then you can also condense that. It's a powerful tool if you are a researcher. And then slides, uh, especially if you have no more time, and then you wanted to develop a an engaging slide. So those are the slides. There's an AI. You just have to upload your content, and then the slides will just a presentation will be prepared for you. Okay. Is there someone in the Senate pushing the public school? I think there is. There is a committee, something there. What else? Oh, this one is a real-time translation. Because I advise a Chinese PhD student, and it's difficult for us, so we just downloaded this in real time. We can see actual actual translation, no? Then that's for example. On the screen, these are so-called um videos that are not really real. No, videos that are not really real. Ang tawag nito deep fake technologies. So, it's a fake thing, but ginagawa siya just to improve and enhance services. For example, this is not really me actually talking. It's actually a video. Let me play. So that one is my colleague. We have a project. We develop a project on trolls and deepfake technologies because the misinformation world is using deepfake technology now, as if we're looking at uh, 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 a original person on TV, but they are not actually the one because they can mimic. No, just like myself here is not really me. It's not really me. It's a deepfake. Uh, the audio is not also you. The audio can also be mimicked. I just said this is a sample of my audio. This is a sample of me. This is a picture of me. Try to understand and mimic me. So something like that. And then I said choose. Make sure that I'm wearing an eyeglass. So something like that. And then the deepfake AI will develop that for you. You can also say, make my voice modulated. So the name of the tool is DID. It's not free, but it's a very powerful. There is a free version. You can try for yourself. Okay. So all of these generative AI innovations in education is very important, and it always continue to advance, and we can expect further transformative applications in the field of education. And if you will see online, if you will search online, there is always a mention about it's improving, it's increasing, and so on and so forth. I actually following the laboratories, the experiments of AI, open AI in general. I look at what they are doing right now, how they are improving right now, and you will really be surprised because they are improving every minute, every second. They're trying to solve issues that I'll be presenting later. They said, well, in AI there is no emotion, but right now they're trying to put up behavioral activity in understanding the people and so on and so forth, and even emotions and so on. What does it entail? It all entails that schools need to embrace AI. Schools need to embrace AI, but when we embrace AI, it requires a proactive approach. When we say proactive approach, we have to address two technical and ethical considerations. Again, we have to be proactive that we should address technical and ethical considerations. Why? Because we have no choice. We cannot police our students 24/7. AI now are so light that can be downloaded in our phone. We can say we can say no to AI in our classroom, but we cannot police our students when they are out of the classroom. So instead, at Silliman, our attack is our mantra of the use of AI is yes, we are allowing our students using AI, but regulated. We have to regulate the use of AI because there's a lot of risk. In my study, I learned so much. There are so many risks and many, many late bloomers, especially the teachers who are not so adept to technology. They always ask me about a risk, and there's a menu of risks also of AI in education. Plagiarism and academic integrity, unintended bias and fair use issues like generative AI models can inadvertently perpetuate biases present in their training data because this AI kasi, they just get also information from the internet. So gaya ng Philippines that we love to hoard our data and we don't want to share, it means we are not contributing information to their training data. And if their training data is majority is coming from let's say from the European country, from the US country, so they just provide you context from there. Sometimes the unintended bias, these are the reasons of hallucinated data. There are hallucinations. Generative AI, meron ng tinatawag na nag-hallucinate. Hindi lang tao yung nag-hallucinate ngayon, pati na si AI. Wala, kahit ano-ano lang yung ibibigay niya na content to you. That is why we should not be dependent all the times the content of generative AI. Then next we have, of course, the lack of critical thinking, ethical considerations, privacy concerns, dependence on technology, the quality of the output, unintentional spread of misinformation, loss of creativity, inequitable access, technical issues and errors, and lack of teacher training support. We need to mitigate all of these risks, and that this requires a comprehensive approach involving education on responsible AI use, ethical considerations, and fostering critical thinking skills among our learners, among us teachers. We have to remember that schools need to embrace AI, but it requires a proactive. In order for us to be guided, we can actually look at the UNESCO's call for human-centered approach to AI. Uh, this documentation aimed to shift the conversation to basically include AI's role in addressing current inequalities regarding access to knowledge, research, and the diversity of cultural expressions, and to ensure AI does not widen the technological divide within and between countries. You can download this. It's amazing documentation. In 2023, UNESCO actually come up with a recommendation on the ethics of artificial intelligence. 2021, sorry, in November 23, 2021, 193 member states, which is actually attended by head of Ministry of Education like CHED for the Philippines. They attended there. I mean, they were gathered by UNESCO and they created a set of recommendation for interconnected values and principles. So on the values of respect, protection, promotion, environment, and so on and so forth, with the principles proportionality and do no harm, safety and security, fairness, sustainability, the right to, and all the rest. So you can actually download this. You can actually download this in in the material of the UNESCO. It gives you a framework on how you can make sure that there is responsible and ethical use of artificial intelligence in teaching and learning. From there, it's basically expanded. It is articulated into 5 columns in when it comes to the ethical principle, the key constituents, issues, and some of the goals. Transparency, explainability, explicability, understandability, and interpretability. All of these are ethical principles to reap the maximum benefits of learner-centric education. We need to address all of this. Schools must be able to articulate on how to mitigate all of this and educate our learners. Okay, in from there, uh, UNESCO UNESCO actually UNESCO had a they call us for strategic partnerships, no? And luckily, I was invited as one of the speakers for a roundtable discussion that talks about art. Actually, our role was articulating the recommendations that made by the Ministry of Education, and we articulated several questions. In my area, I was assigned to answer 2 questions. And the first question that I lead is what skills and competencies that are essential for students to ethically and responsibly use artificial intelligence or generative AI. And then the second question that in my team answered, what skills and competencies are essential for students to critically assess and interpret AI generated content? I wish to share, but we are still under in the non-disclosure. It will be released by UNESCO, I think, within the year. The documents that we came up during the stakeholders meeting, and it will be made accessible. It will be made accessible to everyone who wanted to create their own implementing guidelines. The document is actually an extension of the first document that they released. Is more of the articulation on how we are going to craft our own principles and our own guidelines in teaching and learning. It's so wonderful. I've with several countries actually. There were, I forgot how many, but in my table, uh of course in the Asia Pacific, but it's very touching to know that because there were also students that we discussed, and many of these students are also hate, no? Students doesn't want AI, and then students also want AI. Um, but at the end of the day, the students are really crying for a guided principle and a regulation to use generative AI. And then way back immediately after that, I was also invited by UNDP Philippines, and I was also assigned to look at how ready the educational system in the Philippines when it comes to catalyzing AI readiness. No, the intention here is UNESCO also through UNESCO's project through UNDP. They're trying to develop an assessment tool when it comes to how to make sure that the use of AI is ethically and responsibly. Okay, so that's it. And then what are the ways based on these experiences, overwhelming experiences I had? It's it's also a responsibility to share to other colleagues in the academe on making sure there are some ways to prepare that I learned no from all this engagement I have with UNESCO and with some other partnerships. What are some ways? Number one, really to me, is educators training and professional development. This is what we did at Seliman. As early as 20, I think 2022. I remember the last quarter of 2022. Our president called us. We created an ad hoc committee, myself, our legal department, and our ICT department, um, and asked us what's our stand on AI, on generative AI. During the time, even though I am in the computer science and in the IT, I said we don't know because that's really new. And then, you know, what's our decision that time? Block any form of AI in the university. The consensus was because we wanted to learn. We wanted to be trained. We wanted to partner with other experts. We wanted to learn, in other words. So that is why we connected with UNESCO. I've attended several upskilling also so that I can transfer it to our university. Schools must really invest on educating colleagues on or educating the administrators, educating the teachers, educating the students. All of the stakeholders in the ecosystem needs to be trained, need to be educated about AI. Collaborate with expert, very useful. Alam kong may mga expert in the room or in your school, but that's not enough. Two heads are always better than one. Many institutions working together are always better than having one within an internal. Collaborate. For sure, CNE is willing to help us in the collaborations, establish network with all of this. Develop ethical guidelines and policies. At Siliman, we have our BOT approved framework. You can also download. You can refer it to our website. Right now, we are policing our guidelines and policies, and it will be released soon. And you can look at it. Our intention is to have a policy that we can copy and paste and put it into our syllabus. All syllabus, all learning management systems should have that so that our students will be guided what not and what are allowed in the use of artificial intelligence. Be transparent. This may not be necessarily articulated to us, teacher, but maybe for programmers, for our team, like for Siliman, we have our team who works with the development of our AI framework. We always tell how, what what can what AI, what generative AI can be done in the classroom, what cannot be done, how it is worked, everything. We tried. Ako kasi I'm into computer science, so I know how these algorithms work. Kaya nga sabi ko, I always tell to my students, kahit hindi ko pa ito iraran in a plagiarism or an AI in an AI checker, alam ko na this document, this construction is made by AI. Talagang malalaman ko yan. May pattern, merong algorithm yan. And I know how this algorithm works. Okay? Then, data privacy and security. Learn about at least man lang the basic of data Privacy Act of 2012, so that you would know. Continuous monitoring and evaluation. Keep on monitoring, keep on evaluation, like my office is doing right now. We keep on asking our students, how's your integration? What are the things that need to be improved? Addressing equity, accessibility, and inclusion, and all of these. No, these are really very important because as we make sure schools can effectively prepare, this will enable us to prepare for the AI revolution while addressing the challenges and concerns associated with its implementation. We need to harness, remember, disruptive education, but we have to make sure that we are doing this responsibly and equitably in our own context. You cannot say, good for Seliman, and we cannot do that. We have different contexts. Our integration, I'm sure, will have a different level of integration in your school. So let's just be equitable enough in our understanding on AI integration. But what we emphasize really is student empowerment. No, I remember many schools are actually calling Siliman and ask me, "Oh, what is your tool for cheating? What is this? A cheating tool that can detect cheating detector and etc. etc." My take always is, educational technology is always an investment. But at Siliman, because we are a Christian institution, we always believe that we have to empower our students and teach them how to exercise and articulate academic integrity. Attack the heart of the students. Let them feel that we are doing this for them and not just simply to cheat para lang sa isang panandaliang aliw. Oh, di ba? So, AI literacy, data literacy, we do all of this. We empower our students. Our research project in my office emphasize on advocacy on digital citizenship, fighting information disorder, and so on and so forth. What I am driving is schools must develop its integration framework. You need to have your own policy. You need to have your guidelines. You need to have your monitoring mechanism. The video that I showed to you is our complete explanation, a very brief documentation, video documentation of our AI framework. Our AI framework is actually not only inside the classroom, but it's attacks on teaching and learning, which is the classroom, and operations and management that refers to offices, support offices. Within that box, the center is AI integration, but we focus some few items. We focus on content in the classroom, pedagogy, research, and assessment. While in the office, we wanted them to use this as a reference, a writing assistant, an organization, and reporting. While we are doing all of this, we value on responsible use, we value on contextualization, and we emphasize on validating the content being produced by artificial intelligence. Why we embrace all of this? Because we wanted to increase productivity, we wanted to have better customer service and support, we wanted to have a better work balance among our employees, our teachers. Like instead of checking so many long paper, why not just run it in an AI checker? Engaging learning experiences, personalized learning, and of course, at Siliman, we always embrace innovation. Okay, and then we still maintain this and the values on innovation and critical use, continuous learning culture, collaboration and engagement, student-centric approach, mission-driven integration, and the principles. We have all these principles, which is aligned also with our vision, mission, goal, and the institutional graduate outcomes. No, and then of course, training is number one. We develop our 1 year upskilling program from We even train parents. No, we collaborate with the Parent Teachers Association. We conducted workshops on digital parenting, how to use digital technology at home, and so on. A lot of this. So some of the lessons learned, I'm about to end my talk. Some of the lessons learned, I divided some lessons that I'd learned into three. Number one is we have no choice. We have really to adapt to change. No, we have to adapt to change. Digital integration in educational system is imperative. Imperative in preparing for industrial economy. And strategic partnership is of great help, equated with transformative leadership. It needs to have a leader. You need to have a president, a principal, or a head that can articulate or that can drive you in the transformation. Yung nagpupush. Ako, I'm just so lucky that our president is very transformative in nature, and one of her flagship is on innovations, is on technology. Relevance is very important. The pressing demand of disruptive innovation brought by the fourth industrial revolution and AI, to be more specific, should be always coupled with the vision, mission, and goal of the institution, with the emphasis on the achievement of institutional graduate outcomes. You have to look at your institutional graduate outcomes, your IGO. Saan sa IGO na matutulungan ni innovations, ni artificial intelligence. At Silliman University, we changed our vision. We changed our mission just very recently, I think last year, because we need to incorporate innovations. So one goal there talks about innovation, technology, AI, etc. And not just simply for operations, but teaching and learning. The last thing is collective. Uh, any digital transformation, digital disruptions, leveraging to transformative education and future ready school is a very challenging and but it opened a lot of opportunities. It opened a lot of opportunities because again, there's so many things that technology can do and can disrupt. It must be a collective effort. Teachers, administrators, students, parents, you name it, lahat dapat. So, like kami for our school, we have a lot of iterations talking to student government, talking to the administrators, talking to the teachers because we have to gather their inputs. There should be, and you should emphasize that there should be a shared responsibility. So yung mga policies namin validated by our faculty, ito yung mga ganito, ganyan. So sa tingin nyo, pwede nitong gamitin and so on. And there should be a culture of disruptive innovation, and that should be fully understood by everyone. That disruptive innovation is not just simply automation. Na kailangan naming intindihin that there will be change in the process along the way. Kaya sinama namin si organizational development. So while we are doing innovation, there are organizational development initiatives in the university that also changes the process because of the current times. Okay, so AI holds immense potential in teaching and learning, but with that potential comes the responsibility to wield it ethically and responsibly. As we go on into technological adventure, I always encourage you to emphasize to our students to cultivate skills that go beyond technical aspects, skills that involve critical thinking, ethical decision making, and a deep understanding of the impact of their actions can have. So in our training design for our students, we included this. That all our training involved critical thinking, ethical decision making, and deep understanding to AI. So how do we navigate this landscape responsibly? Starts with recognizing the importance of continuous learning. The tech world is dynamic and your ability to adapt and grow will be your greatest asset. Collaboration is the key, as I mentioned. Work with others, learning from each other, and sharing your knowledge will propel you forward. It's not just about what AI can do, but it's about what us teachers, as responsible users, can do with AI. So yung mindset when you craft your policy, uh, is not about, okay, let's learn what AI can do, but try to set first your own baseline. What do you want for AI to support you? So align your teaching endeavors with a mission to use technology not just for its own sake, but as a force for positive change and memorable learning experiences. So let us all be the catalyst of change, responsible teacher innovators who bridge the gap between disruptive innovation and, we always hear this, compassionate teaching. And remember, technology won't replace us, but I'll tell you, technology also can make us irrelevant. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig.
How can AI be used to enhance collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking among students rather than just focusing on rote learning and score?
Mm. Kaya ma'am, meron tayong mga specifics, no. I teach actually I teach in the PhD program, alternative assessment. So merong ano na, because of yun nga, AI powered technology, meron tayong tinatawag na adaptive learning platform. So yung adaptive learning platforms kasi mag-a-adapt siya according to performance ng estudyante. So for example, if you have 20 students, yung mga exams na ibibigay ni adaptive learning platform, like embedded in your learning management system, iba-iba. So, yung mga material na i-provide, iba-iba yan. Kasi nga, if yung learning style niya is medyo kailangan pang maraming reading, so si Adaptive Learning Platform magbibigay ng more reading material. So, yung Adaptive Learning Platform, dito natin makikita yung mga learning journeys. So, there are learning journeys like if average si student, si Adaptive Learning Platform magbibigay ng another learning journey. Iba yung mga exams niya, iba yung mga materials reading niya. But at the end of the day, the system will be able to synchronize to measure the performance collectively. Kaya AI talaga siya. So, napaka-AI, maganda yung approach kasi nga, 'di ba, minsan may mga estudyante tayong alam nating hindi bobo yung estudyante, but the way we deliver, hindi siya nagma-match to the learning style ng mga estudyante. So that's one. Another also is meron tayong tinatawag na collaborative problem solving, no? Instead of just rote learning, collaborative problem solving. For example, again, we can use technology again. Forum is number one. Mga wikis, you can create your own wikis, and then even gamification. Let them work together. What else? There are LMS also that you can integrate mga AI powered feedback mechanism. Oh, for example, nag-answer yung bata. Pag-answer ng bata, ito lang yung nakuha niya. So si AI, siya na yung magsabi na, "Oh, very good. I think you have to study more. You're low into this, so here are the material." So mga AI generated feedback. And there are some creativity tools, no, that we can add. And of course, analytics and others. But I think pinaka-easy to imagine, ma'am, yung adaptive learning platforms, collaborative problem solving. All of these are actually embedded inside the so-called nga adaptive learning platform. Para you can visualize this, I suggest maybe a CNE can have one what's really, so that they can visualize adaptive learning platform.
Promoting AI generated content. May I know, is there a law to protect us? Um, is there if there is a law protect us those who use AI generated content, especially in
Okay.
research, or
Yeah.
something that makes AI generated content accepted in general?
Mm. There is no government law. The only law that we can associate are the following: Data Privacy Act, Cybersecurity Law. You can also look at Safe Spaces Act. e-commerce law, but there is really no law, no Republic Act on the use of generative AI. That is why I said what we can do as of the moment is our own institution should develop an ethical guideline. At what age ba dapat natin i-introduce si generative AI? Walang specific timeline, walang specific age bracket kasi nga ang sagot kasi diyan is depende depende kung gaano ka-immerse yung mga bata into the technology. So for example, I have a 7-year-old son. He got all his accent, all his English, all his words na hindi mo malalaman saan kinuha actually from technology, from YouTube. I downloaded, but what I did, being in the educational technology, I created my own channel for him. I downloaded, I look at developmental goals. Pag 3 months siya, alam ko kung ano lang dapat na mga movie ang pwede sa kanya. Nung 5 months siya, dapat ito lang makikita niya. So, tapos may stage development din ako sa technology, no? Ang ginawa ko kasi may mga research na nagsasabi na kung gusto niyo ng retention, wag yung mobile phone, no, ng mga bata, dapat naka-TV lang siya. And then yung yung mga material mo on TV, provide also a physical object sa TV para kung ano yung makikita sa TV ng mga bata, at least magagawa niya in person. So for example, pag yung sa TV mo are all balls and etc., dapat yung play area ng bata mo, ng anak mo, andun yung bola, andun yung mga numbers para ma-actualize kung what they have seen on movies or on the YouTube or whatsoever. So wala. So, ang ginawa namin, digital parenting ang tawag. Meron kaming sariling keys na sinasabi namin ganito. So, ngayon, 7-year-old na yung anak ko. So, palagi naming sinasabi na alam mo, if you see something like this, you have to remember it's only in movies. It's not real, and that you have to tell mommy or daddy that it showed up. And if you see something like this, an ad, make sure to X button, etc. So it depends. If you intend not to immerse your kid, if you want your kid to immerse like at 10 years old, then start educating digital parenting in general. So something like that. Educating them to digital technology will start at the time, no, at the time that you allow them to be in the digital world.